Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another battle to the death for you. And today, by God, we got a slobber knocker. This is the Chris Reeve Large Sebenza 31 versus the Hinderer XM-18 3.5 inches. As always, I'd have to say right up front, all of your battles to the death are brought to you by Southern Edge Knife Works. We very much appreciate their sponsorship in this. They make a lot of these possible. Go to southernedgeknifeworks.com, use the code SDSEK at checkout and get 15% off, plus free shipping. If you live in the continental United States. Outside of that, it's only 15 bucks. Still very reasonable. So go check them out if you enjoy these little battles to the death. Great people. And they have a pretty good selection. And again, you get a good discount. So link to that down below. All that good stuff. All right, let's get going. This one is going to be controversial. I know that. I know that the comment section is going to be a bloodbath. I have accepted that. This is probably a very bad time to put this out in April 2020 when we're all locked in our houses and everybody's already getting a bit antsy in the comments. But I'll take the risk. Just remember, these are my opinions. Not everybody. I get a few comments every now and then. People will say, oh, this review is just your opinion if they disagree with me. Well, yeah, that's what a review is. It's just one guy and it's one guy's opinion. There's no way you can make it not just be your opinion. A lot of stuff is, your hand shape, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of varying factors that you can't make it universally scientific across the board. It just isn't going to happen. So yes, take that into account. You feel free to disagree with me. Don't mind that a bit. I'm used to it. I'm married. I have 2 semi-adult children. Trust me, used to it. One of them is a teenage girl. Yeah. People tell me I'm wrong every day. Not going to bother me. All right. But why did I choose these two in these particular configurations? Well, I tried to choose the most basic versions of each one. These are both undisputably icons. In a lot of ways, there is no loser here. I mean, there is, according to the scoring system, but there really is no loser. These are both total grail knives. They are both well over $400. So completely understand why. It's human nature. If you spent $400 on knife A and I say knife B wins, you're going to be upset because you spent that money. And I get it. Both of them, well worth the investment, in my opinion. If you're a true knife nerd, feel free to disagree with me down below in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you will and say nothing is worth that much. But they are both outstandingly built, outstanding companies that, you feel completely comfortable standing behind. Both USA made, all that stuff, everything that you want to see. Both super high quality. But I chose these configurations because this is the most basic Sebenza 31 large. This is the $450 plain, is what they call it, which is kind of what it is. It is the fairly plain version. It's just their usual finished titanium, S35VN. Everything they do is S35VN for the moment. We'll talk about that more when we get to the blade. But that usual kind of heavy B blast finish in S35VN. Now I chose the finger choil 3.5 inch slicer because that is the most common XM-18 you're going to find. If you just go search around right now and try to find one you can buy now, that's probably, what you're going to find. And it's one of the better configurations, I do honestly feel. They do make this blade in a no choil, but those are pretty rare. And of course, being an XM-18, there are a whole bunch of different blade versions. Now, the 31 will have more, I'm certain, because it did before. It had a Tanto. It had the Insingo blade, I think it was called. And I'm sure that will be coming, but the 31's pretty new. So right now, it's just this drop point is the only one you can get. But there will be more, but still not as many as there are in the XM-18. There are a ton. This is the standard version. They have skinny versions. They have all kinds of stuff. They have different blade shapes. They have like a spear point, a spear point fuller, Tanto, all kinds of stuff they've done. A Spanto, sorry, that they do a whole bunch of different versions. But this is definitely the most common with the G10 scale and the 20 CV. The 20 CV slicer grind, and this is $425. So very, very close in price, and both being icons. That's why I wanted to compare them. And I just tried to get the 2 most comparable versions. So how does this work? Well, we have 7 categories as always: design and aesthetics, quality, blade, ergos, carry, deployment, and value. We add them all up at the end. You get a point for every category you win, and we pick a winner. So let's talk about these knives individually. First of all, we will start off with the Sebenza 31 because it's the newest. I haven't actually even done a full review on this yet because other people have. I wanted to do this first. I'll do the full review on this later this week probably, but I've already put the miles on it and stuff, but I just haven't done the full review. So as I said, S35VN, full titanium as you'd expect from Chris Reeve, but they did make some changes from the 21. I owned a 21. I loved it, but I did have a few flaws with it. I don't own it anymore. And I think they have addressed, at least for me, the flaws that I had with it. The number one flaw I had with it was, even though Chris Reeve says that these are not meant to be really, you know, kind of flicky knives, they can be. And I liked being able to do that. On the 21, the placement of this pocket clip made that much more difficult because it was not angled like this. It was straight. So the pocket clip rested on the lock bar, which in turn meant that every time I went my natural hand position when I went to go flick it, meant that I was pushing on the lock bar, so it wouldn't do it at all. Now, it doesn't matter where my hand is, I can still flick it when I actually catch a thumb stud and I don't look like an idiot. So that's really nice. If aesthetically, if you want to spot one in a picture and know if it's 21 or 31, 21 has a locating hole here, which did nothing. It was just for locating the machining equipment. That's gone now. So that's nice to see that being gone. It does make a bigger difference, I think, in the cleanliness of the design than you would think. It does have a ceramic, like ceramic ball lock bar interface now. So it's ceramic touching the metal instead of titanium on steel, which I think is pretty nice. It does seem to make it a bit smoother to disengage from my 21. And I do like that a lot. And also, this is a tiny little thing, but one thing that I noticed that I really like, and somebody pointed out in pictures, so I think a lot of people don't know it, and I don't really see them mentioning it much. But on the old 21, if you cut the lanyard off, which I always do, I don't like lanyards. These do come with a lanyard installed on them. This little lanyard pin, you can see the hole in there for your lanyard to go through, it would just fall through. You couldn't just carry it on there unless you like put a little piece in there and like, you know, burn the edges or whatever. I know Apostle P did that on his old one. And I wound up doing that on mine, but now it does just stay. It is chamfered and stuff and all that. It's milled out, so it will just stay in that spot. It was a tick bit rattly when I did that. I mean, you had to really shake on it to get it to rattle, but I am completely anal, so I did put a bit of Loctite on there just to make it not rattle. But it's not going to bother you in daily life if you don't bother doing that. But I have Loctite, so that's what I did. Let's do some specs really quick, and then we'll move on to the XM-18. As I said, base price of $450. You have an overall length of 8.34 inches, blade length of just a hair over 3.6 inches, blade thickness of 0.12 inches, handle thickness of 0.46 inches, and a weight of 4.7 ounces. Neither of these are going to be accused of being lightweights. Now the XM-18, this is the Gen 6. The Gen 6 meaning it has the tri-way pivot, which we've talked about a lot on this channel. I do review quite a few Hinderers. Tri-way pivot just means that you can run bearings, which is the way they come, or if you choose, you can put phosphor bronze washers or Teflon washers as, or bushings, or yeah, washers. I was right the first time. I always get washers and bushings confused. I'm such an idiot. Washers. You can put Teflon washers or phosphor bronze washers on it, whichever one you choose. You get to choose your own adventure there. That's really nice. I run all of mine on bearings. I like the bearings, but if you do work in an environment where you're going to get a lot of grit and stuff like that, yeah, you can just put the phosphor bronze on there or the Teflon, and that's fine. Back in the day, they only came with the Teflon. That was a big criticism of Hinderer, and I think the tri-way pivot has sort of rejuvenated Hinderer. I mean, it's not like they weren't a revered knife when they just ran on the Teflon, but now they're not just revered. Now they're growing in sales, and they're more available. You're not having to spend $1,000 on the aftermarket for a knife with mediocre action anymore. Those days are over with. The new ones are really nice, and again, like I said, pretty readily available, which is a very, very nice thing to see. And again, I chose this grind and this, you know, forward choil version because it's the most common. And 20 CV steel is what you get with that, and pretty much that's what you're getting on most Hinderers now. The days of the S35VN ones seem to be kind of gone. I haven't seen an S35VN Hinderer in a very long time. You will get, dealer exclusive versions like DLT has an M391 that I have, and there are some other ones that you can get, but you know, it's all really high quality steel now, and at $425, a little bit cheaper than the Sebenza, but not significantly so. G10 scale. This is one of the most common colors, the black. I think your most common colors you're going to see are like black. There's a red that's pretty common, a blue, and like an OD green. Those are kind of the most common colors you're going to see, but as I'll get to design and aesthetics, you can customize these to your tiny little heart's content. That's one of the best things about the XM-18. It is a hobby unto itself, just having one XM-18. Just the amount of changes you can make to it. If you get the Hinderer's armor tool or rig a couple things, they're super easy to take apart and work on, and you can change every little thing on them, which I think is pretty cool. Now let's do some specs. You have, try and line this up here. So these are all 1-inch squares on this background. You have an overall length of, pull up your notes, moron, 8 1/4 inches, blade length of 3.5 inches, blade thickness significantly thicker than the Sebenza at 0.16 inches, handle thickness also quite a bit thicker at 0.54 inches, and a weight of 5.6 ounces. Like I said, neither of these are lightweight. So now let's get to a scoreable category 10 minutes into this video. I'm sorry, these knives are worthy of the explanation, I do think. So, all right, first up, design and aesthetics. This one was kind of tough for me. I do like the shape of the Sebenza much more. I will say that right up front. I very much do. I just think it's very classic. The XM-18 has become a classic, but the XM-18 shape has become a classic because it's an XM-18 and they're well revered, and it's become a classic, where I think this is just a classic shape. I think just if, you ask say a 12-year-old kid that's seen a few pocket knives to draw a pocket knife, what they draw is going to look pretty similar to this. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's like a 911. It looks great. It looked great in the 60s. It looks great now. This looked great when it came out, many, many years ago, and it still looks good now. It is just kind of an iconic shape. You can get some inlays and stuff, and the inlay ones are beautiful. I originally intended to get one of those, but it's not how it worked out. And I got the plain one. I'm kind of glad I did for the purposes of this. The inlay versions are gorgeous. They are significantly more expensive. Right now, there's only just this one blade shape. I'm sure there will be more because previously, the Sebenza had the Insingo blade and a Tanto and all kinds of stuff. I'm probably going to wait for one of those before I get the fancy version. But just in this drop point, it's just a very classic, beautiful shape. But I don't like the shape of the XM-18 more, but just the endless amounts of customization that you can do. Not even like the aftermarket. I'm just talking like when you go to find one, they come in so many different colors and configurations. I mean, I'm going to bring out one extra one here. Like this is technically a stock configuration with this this is a different blade shape and stuff, and it's M390. It is a DLT exclusive, but it was one that was very widely available. You get different finishes. This working finish is a no-cost option. You can get the battle bronze finish, a no-cost option. So when you just go to buy one initially, there are so many more choices, and they don't charge extra for them. So this is $425. If you go buy one with a red scale and a battle bronze finish, if you can find one, it's $425. And I do like that a whole lot about the XM-18. You can really, one of their slogans is make it your own, and you can. So I like the shape of this better. I like the customizations better on this. I'm going to call it a tie. Part of me wanted to give it to the XM-18, but I do just love that classic shape of the Sebenza. So I got to call it a tie. As far as quality goes, both great quality. I've never really had any problems with either of them. I have more experience with Hinderers than Chris Reeve, I will admit that. But Chris Reeve won like the quality award for like years and years and years at Blade Show, and there's a reason for that. I mean, they are exquisitely built. I know it's an old cliche. I think somebody in a comment just today, I looked this morning and somebody said, I'm sick of everybody saying that they're worth it because of the machine tolerances. Well, they kind of are, if that's your thing. Their machine tolerance is perfect. Like I said, the only problem I had on this one was that I put some Loctite on that little lanyard tube thing, just because it rattled a bit, but it needed to rattle a bit because otherwise it wouldn't move when you had the lanyard on it. If you have a lanyard on it, you want it to move. So I just didn't want it to move anymore. So that was kind of more of a modification by me than a flaw in it. And they're just so flawlessly built. I have no flaws with any of my Hinderers. They're all very well built. They've always been very good, but I don't know. It's just something about a Sebenza in your hand, or any Chris Reeve knife, really. They just feel like, I don't know. They just feel expensive. They just feel like something that is indestructible by conventional weapons. And, you know, just that smoothness of the action, just all kinds of tiny little things that they do that I'm going to give a, not a giant margin, huge win in quality, but I have to give a slight win in quality. More than slight, but not huge, to the Sebenza 31. Blade. This is the one I'm going to get slaughtered on. So, Chris Reeve now pretty much just uses S35VN. It's been leaked out, or not even leaked out. I guess they allowed someone to put up an article. They're testing S45VN, and that's probably what you're going to be seeing if you're watching this in the future. This may be S45VN instead of S35VN. I don't know a lot about S45VN yet, but it is going to be a slight jump up in steel. But S35VN at $450 is a big ask. I do like how slicey this is. It is a classic, you know, hollow grind, but thickness behind the edge is actually just a hair thicker than the XM-18 and the slicer grind. This is about 24 thousandths. This is 25. Are you going to notice that? Probably not. But it's and Chris Reeve does run their S35 a little bit soft by their own admission. So I completely understand. That's just a choice that they've made, because this is meant to be a working knife. They want it to be easier to sharpen, all that kind of stuff. And it is a joy to sharpen. Every Chris Reeve I've ever sharpened has been a complete joy, except for they use this convex grind. And if you send it to a custom sharpener, you're probably going to lose that, because it is a bit harder to get that exactly right. I know most Sebenzas that have been sharpened by a professional usually just don't have that anymore. You can send it straight back to Chris Reeve and get it sharpened, though. They don't charge you. I think they charge you like for a spa service, but I think sharpening's free. So if you want to keep that convex grind, send it back to them, and they're very quick. So that's not like the end of the world having to do that. You'll be without your knife for, a couple of weeks, and you'll have it back and it'll be perfect again, which is a great service that they offer. But, yeah, it's, these are 20 CV, and it's a better steel. And if you don't like the slicer grind, go find another one. There are a ton. There's the Fullard Spear. There's, the Spanto. There's a skinny slicer if you want something that's more. This is definitely not as slicey as Sebenza. Sebenza, a much slicier knife, but you can get a skinny slicer, which is much closer to that. You can get all kinds of different stuff. And that's I like this blade just as much as this blade. I would call these two pretty close to even. This is a better slicer, but I do like the performance of the steel a little more. So I would call these two pretty even. But just the fact that if you don't like this one, go find another one. Even if this did come in the usual Sebenza options, there are still more for the Hinderer. So yeah, on the blade, I know I'm going to get crucified. I have to give a slight edge to the Hinderer. I just do. Ergonomics. This one wasn't that hard for me. I am a Hinderer fan. You guys know I've reviewed a lot of them. I own 4. But the XM-18 is honestly not even my favorite model, and it's mostly because of the ergonomics. I mean, it fits in my hand well. There's no complaints there. There's no hot spots or anything. You can feel that little hump in the back a tiny bit, but not much. I do like that you can choke up. That's good. But I've always found the XM-18 to be a bit gymtastic. This jimping up here is okay when you're using it. It's a bit of a problem in deployment. We'll get to that. But I don't know. I'm not in love with the ergos on the XM-18. They're fine. They're still really good. They're better than average, but I don't know. They've never really been a complete joy to me. Where the Sebenza kind of is. It just feels right. It just feels like a knife. You have the same exact little hump there that you can feel in the palm of your hand a tiny little bit, but especially where they move this clip now, you don't feel that clip in your hand a bit. It just feels great in my hand. And again, this is kind of a subjective category. I have large hands with very skinny fingers, so both of them I feel very hand filling. And even though this is kind of a just blockier, simpler handle, you would think the XM-18 would be more comfortable. And in some ways, like the shape of the handle are, but just it has too much jimping. This has just the right amount of jimping for the level of work that I do. If you're doing really hardcore stuff, maybe you're going to appreciate that jimping more than I do, but it just has a little bit here on the top and it's just the right texture. Works great. I have to give the win in ergonomics to the Sebenza. Now in the carry, bring out Yale Wranglers, close these suckers up. This is not close, I will say. Obviously, the Sebenza is lighter, it's thinner, it has no flipper tab. Okay, the Sebenza is going to win, but we're going to go through this anyway. Point definitely goes to the Sebenza. It's just, this is, for a knife of this size, it's extremely comfortable to carry. You do have a little bit sticking out if you chose not to put that little blue pin in and just remove it. That is, you don't need to have it if you're not using the lanyard. It would be even more discreet to carry. Pocket clip tension is awesome. It slides in and out great. It's super easy to get your hand past. All the things you want. For a knife this size, and even for a knife this weight, it's not light. 4.7 isn't a tank, but it's not light. It's just a joy to carry. It really is. It is kind of a knife that, not to use a cliche, I almost forget is in my pocket. And yes, it has passed the aforementioned nap test. I'll try to link to that at the end so you guys remember what the nap test video was. You guys thought that was pretty funny, but it is a true thing that I do. So, yeah, passes the nap test. It's a great knife to carry. The Sebenza is just, the XM-18 is just fine. I don't hate carrying an XM-18. Flipper tab does stick out quite a bit. That is an undeniable thing. But the pocket clip tension is nice. You do have a fair bit sticking out, but that flipper tab, when you go to reach past it, it's just, it's there. There's jimping on it. Again, the jimptasticness, you're going to catch it. There's jimping back here that you may rub your hand on as your hand's going in and out. It does not pass the nap test. There's no way you're going to take a nap and forget this is in your pocket. It's just not, carry-wise, easy win for the Sebenza. And it sounds like I'm trashing the XM-18. I'm not. It's fine to carry, but the Sebenza is really good to carry for the size that it is. Now, deployment. This one is a pretty easy win for the Hinderer. So the Sebenza got an easy win. Now the Hinderer gets an easy win because it's that tri-way pivot. You get to choose your own adventure. The Sebenza has a very unique, a very unique action, which is lovely. Absolutely lovely. I like it. A whole lot of people obviously like it, but it is more of they call it a hydraulic feel more than they're never going to be drop shutty. You can, this one I can, I've gotten it enough now that I can do that. It'll break in more as time goes on. It is a fairly new one, but it's always going to take a little bit of wrist. It's always going to take a little bit of wrist to flick it closed. And it's beautiful. It's so smooth, but it's meant to be like this. It's never meant to be, just blade fall shut. It's never been meant to do that. And it's never going to be. It is a very unique action you're not going to find on anything other than a Sebenza. That old, thing about Sebenza smooth, I do think is true. It is a very unique action, but this is more what I look for, especially on the bearings. It's just still flicks out super easy. I like the drop shuttiness. Again, this is a heavier blade, so physics are going to dictate, that it's going to fall better, but yeah, I just like this action better. It does have one flaw in that if you are using the flipper tab, because you can thumb flick it, but you have to do kind of an up motion instead of the usual out motion. So you can use the thumb studs, even though they're not technically thumb studs. There's technically blade stops, but you can use those as well. But if you're using the flipper tab, yeah, where your finger wants to land is right on all this rough stuff. So the only way to get around it is just you don't use much of it. And that's kind of a nice reason why it's long, I guess, because you see that way my finger doesn't touch it. So that's how I usually open and close it. The D10 on these are really, really good now. If anything, they're a bit stiff. I just really like the action a lot more on a Hinderer than on the Sebenza. The Sebenza is never going to be a knife that's just fun to sit and fiddle with. Okay, so now we are on to our final category. And this one is another one that was really tough for me. Value. How do you how do you score value on two knives that are both well over $400? And a lot of you in the comments, and have said in comments before whenever I show either of these knives, just say, I don't think they're worth it. That's a completely valid argument. As a logical human being, are they worth it? No, probably not. You can get a really nice knife for $75, $100 that will do everything that these do with a lot of the same materials that these have. Maybe not quite as well built, maybe not with quite as good of a, you know, or even close to as good of a factory backup, but still you can do that. And that's a completely valid argument. But if you have, these are knives that, and these aren't the only two, there are a lot like this, but they are just iconic designs. You need to have one in your hand to really get it. And the quality of the build and all that stuff, you just need to have it in your hand. That's something that can't be conveyed by one of these videos. It can't be conveyed by a stat sheet online. It just can't be. Which makes it sad what the deciding factor of this is going to be in the value, because this is the deciding factor category, and the deciding factor of the best value is a pretty small one. But first of all, the Chris Reeve, amazing aftermarket support. You can just send one off and they will completely refurbish it to brand new for a very reasonable price, and you get your knife back just brand new. That is awesome. That is really cool. I do like that a lot. They'll sharpen the blade and all that. Right now, there are not many blade shape choices, but I'm sure the Insingo's coming. I'm sure that the Tanto's coming, and you bet as soon as they come out with a Tanto, or maybe even the Insingo, I don't know, I'm going to get one with the inlays. I'm definitely going to do that because I really like the look of the new inlays on the 31. They are gorgeous, and I do really want to try that, but I want to try a different blade shape. Now, with the Hinderer, you get... But all that costs extra. Those inlays and stuff cost a lot more. On the Hinderer, there are options that cost a lot more. They do have those, but just in the basic one, you can get a bunch of different colors, a bunch of different finishes. You can get the bronze on the lock side. You can get the battle bronze. You can get the working finish, all that kind of stuff. And if you can find them, they're the same price as the regular ones. They don't charge extra for that, which I think is just cool as hell. And it's really nice to have those options. A bunch of different blade scale colors, a bunch of different blade shapes, as I mentioned. So you can customize this for no money, where you have to spend extra to customize it, you know, on the Chris Reeve. But the deciding factor is honestly the tiniest little thing. It's usually 20 CV versus always S35VN. And I guess that's my final little straw breaker on the value. I was kind of already leaning XM-18 because of how easy it is to get the one that you want, because this is a big investment. You're going to keep this forever. It's much easier to get the one that you want on the XM-18, but it's got better steel. It's just kind of, at the end of the day, it's got nothing wrong with S35VN. I love it. It's probably my favorite blade steel, but 20 CV is unquestionably better edge retention and just better. So have to give the win in the value to the XM-18, which does give a very narrow victory to the XM-18 for, I think, the winner of this battle to the death. It was 3-3. But value is always the tiebreaker. 3-3 with one tie. Value is always the tiebreaker. And that's kind of how I'd go, I think. If I love both of these, I have no intention of getting rid of them, either of them. Gun to my head, even though the XM-18 is not my favorite Hinderer, gun to my head, I'm going to pick the XM-18 because, as I said, it is a hobby in and of itself. You can endlessly customize them and change them. I mean, this is one of mine, though these are both of mine. But, you know, this one isn't really customized. I think you could get this from DLT with that scale on it, but I can change it anytime I want. I have 4 or 5 different scales. I swap these out a lot. This knife does not normally look like this. It normally has the titanium Warthog scale on it, which is awesome. And it has some other bronze parts on it. I converted it back to stock for the purpose of this video. And that's another nice thing. I converted it back to stock. It took me like 10, 12 minutes. It's super easy. I do like the XM-18 for that. It is, again, it's maybe not quite as much of an icon as the Sebenza, but it's damn close. You can definitely see it from where it's standing. And I like the action on it. It's more fun to fiddle with. And yeah, that's what I would probably choose, gun to my head. So the results came out exactly how I would feel, but I know I'm going to get hammered in the comments, and that's fine. If you are a huge Sebenza fan, dude, every right to, or dudette, whatever you are, every right to be a Sebenza fan. They are amazing. They are definitely amazing knives. But I still have to give the very slight one to the XM-18, and I'm going to stick by it, even though you guys are going to hammer me in the comments. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.